Right. Well, man, I've been seeing on the social medias more now than ever, but I've seen it for a while. This has been a trend for a while about mainly coming from the anti-seed oil movement about how McDonald's French fries used to be cooked in beef tallow, and they made the change to using just vegetable oil blends.
Yeah, like 20 years ago,
And somehow,
1990, wasn't it?
right, and somehow that equates to obesity somehow. So, but anyway, seeing a lot of it lately, so I thought, man, I don't know, like let's
Let's
look
dive.
into it, dive
Let's
into
dive
it.
in, man. Yeah.
And you're absolutely right on when it was. So, of course, this is Wikipedia, not the most reliable source for information. However, with stuff like this, it's pretty accurate. Everything that I've seen is pretty accurate. So, introduced in 1949, French fries of McDonald's were cooked in a mixture of 93% beef tallow and 7% cottonseed oil. So, out of the gates here, it never was cooked in 100% tallow. Seed
hmm
oils have always been in McDonald's French fries.
hmm
Um, now 7% seed oil, but anyway, that's the case. So what happened is around 1990. So there's this guy, Phil Sokoloff, a millionaire, a businessman who suffered a heart attack and took out a full-page newspaper ad in New York, Chicago, and other large cities, accusing the McDonald's menu of being threatening to American health and asking them to stop using beef tallow to cook their French fries. After the sustained campaign, including by the National Heart Savers Association against saturated fats and beef tallow they were using in 1990, McDonald's switched to vegetable oil with beef flavoring. And so I found some other stuff too. So they didn't have the beef flavoring right away. They just switched to the vegetable oils. And then people started to complain that the taste wasn't there anymore. So then they added the beef flavoring later on.
Hmm.
So, like the claim right out of the gate here is that somehow McDonald's switching their French fries to being cooked in seed oil has this large impact on obesity rates in America, I think is ludicrous on its face, especially when we consider the serving size that McDonald's French fries has gone through since
Yes, Lord.
1949. I'm old enough to remember when a small fry had like 15 French fries in it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And now it's a much bigger. So like the small fry now is like a medium fry
Used
when
to
I
be,
was a
yeah.
kid. Yeah.
Yep, yep, absolutely. Yeah, I got it.
So, but could it possibly be the case that if McDonald's were to switch back to beef tallow, and use 100% beef tallow and just omit that cottonseed oil that they were using before, could that possibly have an impact on the rates of obesity? And so I went looking for some trials comparing tallow consumption to these vegetable oil consumptions and then its effect on body weight specifically. So not really any other markers of like cardiovascular disease or anything else, but really body fat accumulation and body weight. And I found a whole bunch of animal stuff, couldn't find anything on humans,
People.
which I I think is expected. I don't think that this is really a controversial topic within the scientific community. Um, like all things being equal, calorie for calorie, it's probably just not going to amount to much. So anyway, number one here, the effects of sunflower oil and beef tallows on serum parameters and liver histopathology in experimental rats. And we can see continuous feeding with beef tallow cause an increase in body weight, resulting in obesity. Study number 2, comparison of the effects of dietary beef tallow and corn oil in the hamster model. By the end of the experiment, the BOP treated hamsters that were fed diets containing beef tallow were consistently heavier than those fed corn oil. And we have pancreatic adenoma incidence and
Yeah.
multiplicity were higher in hamsters fed beef tallow than those fed corn oil. Body fat accumulation is greater in rats fed a beef tallow diet than rats fed a safflower or soybean oil diet. Sympathetic activity is lower in rats fed a beef tallow diet than rats fed a safflower oil diet. I got to find this in here. The results suggest that the beef tallow diet promotes body fat accumulation by reducing sympathetic activity as compared with an intake of a safflower oil diet. The effects of sunflower oils and beef tallow on serum parameters. Oh, I already had that one. Get rid of that. The effects of canola oil on body weight and composition. So, those are the trials that I could find in a relatively short time frame without going too far in that directly compared beef tallow to some of these oils. And again, they're in animal models, so we take that for what it is. However, nothing that I found would lead me to believe that switching from vegetable oil to tallow would lead to some decrease in body weight. I didn't find that.
So I want to jump in here for just a second.
Yeah.
It just occurred to me, and um, I am not sponsored by McDonald's, and nor do I get a kickback for saying this. So the McDonald's Corporation, any of those food corporations is worth taking a deep dive in how they develop their products and how they test their products. And there's a lot of science that they do, especially in areas of nutrition. And the reason they do these things isn't always just for the betterment of human health, but sometimes it's geared more towards uh, how do we not get sued? How do we not be a
Mm-hmm.
liability to
Mm-hmm.
society? Um, I will never forget the case where the woman spilled her coffee. Oh my gosh, it's hot coffee. Well, but
That's
McDonald's,
actually so I've actually looked. There was I believe there's a documentary on that, and it actually turned out to be a legitimate case. But go on, go on, go on.
yeah, but so anyway, so the responsiveness there. But anyway, going back to this, is there something that Coach Lambie just said a few minutes ago, and I agreed with. And so I'm not saying this to be truth, but they're not stupid people. It's not rocket science. So when they were cooking French fries in beef tallow, I'm telling you, I was alive that during that time, and I loved McDonald's French fries. But as Coach Lambie and I both agreed that in those days, a like a medium French fry or even a small French fry portion compared to a small French fry portion now was different. Now, was it 15 to 25 or 8 or to 20? I can't tell you the exact numbers. I just know that it was a smaller portion. So I think that should be taken into consideration. And I'm pretty sure that McDonald's probably took that into consideration. Today, people want more for their money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they went back to beef tallow, yeah, obviously, what these reports are saying is that there seems to be a increase in body weight, portion, rats, and so forth. But usually that kind of bears out, for people. So if they were to do that to, well, just in all fairness, they would probably have to reduce the size of the portion. Well, people aren't going to like that. So I think that that's an important thing to think about.
Yeah, you bring up an interesting aspect there on the cost.
Mhm.
So one of the main complaints that the anti-seed oil proponents have is that vegetable oils, seed oils, whatever, are cheap, and that's why a lot of manufacturers use them. And it's kind of like, well, duh. Like if I can cut the cost of something and give it to consumers at a lower cost, consumers are more likely to buy my product.
Right.
But as things stand right now, today, my daughter tends to like French fries quite a bit. I mean, when we go out to eat, that's generally what she eats is French fries.
French fries.
A medium French fry, if you were to just order a medium French fry at McDonald's, the one we go to over here, I don't know what the price is other places, it's $6. If you
Yeah. Yeah.
change the fat, I don't think people realize how much oil goes into the fryers. And if you change that to beef tallow, I guess we could look up the cost of, but it's gonna, the price of French fries is gonna go up tremendously. Holy smokes.
Yes. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, so those are the trials directly comparing beef tallow to an oil, to a seed oil, and its effect on body weight, where there was a reported effect on body weight that I can find. I'm probably sure that I could find a dozen more, but we'll get to other points in the thing here. So looking at just canola oil, the effect of canola oil on body weight composition, systematic review and meta-analysis of randomized control trials. And we see here the meta-analysis revealed that canola oil consumption reduces body weight. This is in
Mhm.
human beings.
Mm, 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 mm.
Uh, Particularly in patients with type 2 diabetes, in studies with parallel designs, in non-feeding trials, and when compared to saturated fat.
Wow.
So specifically looking at that. Now, I also wanted to get
That
some
looks so delicious. Not.
that cube right there. Yeah.
Wow. My
I
bad.
also wanted to get the other side of this, so not just
Right.
coming from my bias or whatever side I have. So this page came up on the first page of Google results when I typed in tallow versus oil body weight. So this came up like I think well, I want to say it was like the fourth result on the first page. So I looked it up and so this person is the primal Andrew Norton. They basically say yes, beef tallow is healthier than vegetable oil. And they go on to give some reasons why. Now, one of the things they do outline here, so beef tallow on a per gram basis has more calories than the vegetable oils. So there's that. So this rich nutrition profile can lead to many health benefits from weight loss to streamlining various bodily functions. And they'll say providing fat soluble vitamins. Tallow is rich in fat soluble vitamins A, D, E, and K. Oh, I forgot to take the screenshots of this. In newsflash, it's not rich in those things. Let's go ahead and do that. I got to move
Yeah. Yeah.
our heads.
That's okay. Let's do it.
Let's go to chronometer. Yeah. All right, so let's look up tallow, beef tallow, NCCDB. So that's going to give us the most nutrients listed. And let's do 100 grams because that's what he had on there. So for 100 grams, we get 900 calories, really zero carbohydrates, which is expected. Okay, so monounsaturated fat, 42 grams, polyunsaturated fat, 4 grams, omega-3. This is in 100 grams
Mm.
of beef tallow, a half a gram of omega-3s. 1.5 grams of omega 6s and right around 50 grams of saturated fat. So half of this thing is saturated fat. Protein, not really going to beat a
109
protein.
milligrams of cholesterol.
109 milligrams of cholesterol. Yeah. So that's 36% of your RDI, the cholesterol there. The saturated fat in 100 grams of tallow is 250% of your saturated fat intake. All right, so we're getting down here to the vitamins. All right, so choline, 100 grams would provide around 14.5%. What do you say? Vitamin D? 100 grams of beef tallow would provide you about 7% of your RDI for vitamin D. Now, let's change this to something reasonable.
Yeah, 100 grams is massive.
Let's go. What would people cook? Let's say 4 tablespoons. What are the vitamins in 4 tablespoons? All right, so for vitamin D, 4 tablespoons gives you 3.5% of your vitamin D. Vitamin E is about 7%. Vitamin K, this is showing 0.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Minerals, there's really nothing for minerals. It's got about 0.1, a tenth of percent for selenium. And that's about it.
So it's next to useless other than a flavor.
As far as providing vitamins and minerals, I don't think tallow is quote unquote rich in those things.
Right.
And you probably should not be looking to that. Canola. Oh, canola. Canola. Let's look up canola oil. Yeah, NCCDB. Let's go 80 nutrients listed. We're going to go 4 tablespoons. Same as the other. What are we looking at here? 481 calories. Fat. So monounsaturated about 34 and a half. Polyunsaturated 15. Our omega-3s here, we're looking at around 5 grams of omega-3s. So as far as like omega-3 to omega-6 ratio that everybody complains about, canola oil is looking, it's 2-to-1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You're not going to get much better than that. 4 grams of saturated fat. Oh, we didn't look at the trans fat in the tallow. All right, so trans fats,
I think
canola
it was
oil.
0. I think it was 0, wasn't it?
And it's going to be more than that. We'll go back.
Okay. But hey, 0 cholesterol.
0 cholesterol. People might disagree on that. Some people think you need it. Choline, not very much in terms of choline there. Let's get down here. Vitamin E. 4 tablespoons gives you almost half of your RDI for vitamin E.
Yeah.
Vitamin K, almost half.
Yep.
Getting down here, if there's any minerals, so really no minerals in there. The beef tallow had a tenth of a percent of selenium, so, but in terms of being rich, quote unquote, rich in these vitamins, it seems to me canola oil would be a better choice than beef tallow. Let's look at the beef tallow again. I want to see that trans fat. Tablespoon. I'm going to go 4. Trans fats, 2.22 grams.
So I was wrong. Yeah, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, so canola oil was 0.22. So, and then people are going to say, oh, well, the trans fats in beef tallow are the good fats. It's conjugated linoleic acid. I don't know if I can pull it up on here. Let me see. It's going to take forever. So the labeling requirements for trans fats are specifically for the non-conjugated trans fats. So the trans fats that are in a food that are reported on the label are the non-conjugated versions, aka the bad ones.
Okay.
So in terms of, well, seed oils are bad for you because trans fats, well, beef tallow has a multiplication of 100 compared to canola oil.
Well, look, you know what? Some people are just going to believe what you say. And if their friends tell them, dude, tallow is way better, man. You can just taste and it's just really great and it's just more healthy. And they're going to go, yeah. And they're going to believe that. And then if they take just a shallow dive into the Primal webpage. Oh, you should look at Primal webpage.
Yep.
There
this
it is.
guy's
It's
blog
true.
post says it. Yep.
It's true.
That's right. And that's why we're here. That's why we're showing you how to do this.
Yes.
That's why I went to Chronometer and compared the two. So if
Yes.
tallow is quote unquote rich in A, D, E, and K, vitamins A, D, E, and K, which we saw it's not, then you're going to have to accept the position that canola oil is richer in those vitamins. Right. And
Hmm.
then he also
Yep.
provides some links here. So let's look at the links. The role of dietary fats in reproductive health and nutrition benefits in farm animals.
Farm animals. Mm.
So how how that
Mm.
supports this proposition, I'm not really sure. Okay,
Mm.
reducing inflammation. Tallow's fatty acids have anti-inflammatory properties. And this also gets down here to the boosting, so fat soluble vitamins in and CLA, the conjugated linoleic acid. They also report it here. Now, in terms of conjugated linoleic acid has for sure been shown to provide health benefits for certain people in human beings in control trials when supplemented, not when
Mm.
consumed in a whole food source. It has only been shown to provide benefits in a supplemented form. So just because someone links to a trial that shows that supplementing with conjugated linoleic acid improved inflammatory markers does not mean that eating beef tallow is going to improve conjugated linoleic or inflammatory markers. All right. So what does he have linked for reducing inflammation? Functional roles of fatty acids and their effects on human health. And this is blocked behind a paywall. So I'm going to bet he didn't read it.
I'm with you on that bet.
Supporting weight loss.
Yeah,
Let's
let's look at that real quick.
look at the link
I,
here.
yeah, yeah. I'm just
All
go ahead.
right.
I've got something to say. Go ahead.
Dietary fat is linked with hyperphagia. For those of you who don't know what hyper means, it means an increase. Phagia means eating. An increase in eating. Dietary fat is linked with an increase in consumption of food. Several studies indicate that fat promotes overeating. And we can get down here the importance of the type of fat. One reason is that saturated fat promotes fat accumulation in the body. Thus, a diet containing saturated fat in the form of tallow and corn oil was found to be more obesogenic than polyunsaturated fat diets. Dwayne, let me ask you a question. If you were trying to provide evidence that beef tallow promotes weight loss, would you use that study as your evidence?
No, I wouldn't. And I'm glad you asked me that because first of all, that study is doesn't give any indication of that. And second of all, is this is a it's more than just an opinion. It's a what's the word I'm looking for? Um oh gosh, there's another term for fairy tale. But
Mm.
the healthy fats in tallow are satiating, which helps reduce cravings and manage weight. Okay, come on. That's like it's almost like a wives' tale. I get it, and he's in that one article there was that one study. It was trying to say something about the peptides, send transmissions to the brain tells you, like when to stop. No, it doesn't. It doesn't do that. Nothing that we just saw proved that. It's like
Nope.
saying, you know what? I'm gonna, when I eat French fries cooked in tallow, you know what? It just makes me feel fuller.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, it helps me like in my cravings. No, it doesn't.
Now
And it
there
helps.
may be some placebo effect. If you actually believe
Yeah,
tallow is going to make you feel,
maybe,
it may lead to that.
maybe, but placebo, come on, sometimes it's real, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't,
Yeah.
sometimes it
It
has an impact. If this is like voodoo. I'm sorry. Sorry, dude, primal, but this is like voodoo.
yeah.
You know what I get satiated on? Strawberry shortcake.
That's
That makes me
yeah.
full.
Yeah, turns out calories have a satiating effect.
Yeah.
All right. And then his evidence that it boosts immunity. And so it links to this, the immune system and epidemics, the role of African indigenous bioactive substances.
Mm.
Uh, this is here for you guys to read. So, cereal-based fermented foods. You guys can go through and read this, but I'm going to leave the shocking surprise that this does not say that beef tallow
Right.
provides a boost in immunity.
Right.
So I, you, the logical leaps that have to be made to get that from the information that's provided here. So that's somebody's blog post. So looking to some actual science here. So the effect of different edible oils on body weight, systematic review, and network meta-analysis of randomized control trials. So this is specifically on oils. And their conclusion, there's low to moderate certainty of evidence showing that soybean, palm, and sunflower oils were associated with weight gain, while sesame oil produced beneficial anti-obesity effects. Now, if somebody were to link to this, you might have a little bit more credit in linking to that. However, again, when we go into the study and we actually read what's in there, the network meta-analysis revealed that palm oil, rice bean oil, soybean oil, and sunflower oil were associated with a significant weight gain compared to canola oil. Now, what that does not mean is that they increased weight from baseline.
Right.
Because when we go into the supplementary data in this meta-analysis and we look at, so specifically soybean oil was associated with weight gain, right? They said soybean oil produces a gain in weight. So I have soy, all the trials included in this meta-analysis are in purple for soybean. We see weight loss, soy, weight loss, soy, weight loss, soy, weight loss, soy, weight loss. So every trial in the meta-analysis that had looked at soybean oil, the soybean oil resulted in weight loss from baseline. All right. And I went through and I just highlighted all of the oils. So basically what's in McDonald's French fry oil is soy, corn, and canola. That's basically it. So I highlighted all the trials that contain those. And overall, pretty much all of them resulted in weight loss. We have a few where there's some weight gain, but it's 0.2 kilos.
Most of the canola oils are also associated with some weight loss as well.
Weight loss, yeah. So weight gain 0.1 kilo, corn oil 0.6, canola had a 0.08 kilos, 0.42 points. So at best, if there's a trial where a seed oil, and then this one's sunflower, but at best, if there's a seed oil trial in this meta-analysis that resulted in weight gain, we're looking at less than half a kilo. A kilo is 2.2 pounds. So half a kilo would be about 1 pound. All right. And they also had some trials where it included butter, and the butter's in blue. So we can see this trial had butter resulted in a loss of 0.3 kilos. And this one was a gain of 0.04. So basically had no effect on it. And then also for the weight loss, we're looking in terms of, we got 1 kilo, 0.2, no effect, 0.1, 0.1. This one had a loss of almost 8 kilos. That's crazy. So overall, the changes in weight between all these different oils and butter and tallow, it's not, so while it may be statistically significant, it's not clinically meaningful. We're talking about 1 or 2 pounds.
Yeah, the term for that is subclinical.
Yeah.
By the way, did you catch the coconut numbers? I mean, coconut oil numbers on there? Predominantly, they were weight loss.
Oh, coconut oil weight loss. Yeah. So it's yeah, I mean it's there's not a huge effect on weight between swapping out these different types of fats that you're cooking with. All right.
Right.
So we get into the other aspect of this that we touched on earlier, which was like the quantity of French fries is larger. People
Yeah.
are eating out more now than they were, and what you're the caloric content that you're going to get from a restaurant, primarily like fast food restaurants, is going to be much higher than anything you're going to cook at home. So our old friend Zero Acre here, they have a blog on how vegetable oils make us fat. Spoiler alert, they don't really tell you. But we have this nice little chart here that they've provided, and we can see vegetable oil is this red line, and then obesity is this dashed orange line. And this is what most people will give you online is, well, we can see that this line went from the bottom left to the top right, and this line went from the bottom left to the top right. Therefore, this one caused that one. Well, that's not quite how this works. All right.
Yeah, no, that's a stretch.
What you'll never see here in these charts that people provide is a correlation coefficient. And a correlation coefficient is a statistical number that tells us just how much these two things correlate. So a great example of this is produced from the 7 countries study. A lot of people will be familiar with that.
Yep,
And
yep.
you can go to 7countrystudy.com. It's either .com or .org, but you can look at all of the data that has been produced from the 7. It's still ongoing. A lot of people don't know that 7 country study is still ongoing, still collecting data. So you can look at all that data. And something that the anti-seed oil crowd likes to say about the 7 country study is they didn't look at sugar. Well, they actually did. You can go to the website and you can see that there's a correlation coefficient between sugar and coronary heart disease. And then we also have a correlation coefficient between saturated fat and heart disease. And what they found was that the coefficient for sugar and heart disease was around like 0.63. So it certainly does correlate. Sugar does correlate with heart disease. However, saturated fat was like 0.9. The correlation coefficient was 0.9. Correlation coefficient stretches between -1 and 1. So positive numbers indicate that the two things correlate with each other. A negative number would be they don't. It'd be an inverse correlation. So that's why we have the recommendations on saturated fat and sugars, because the two do correlate with heart disease. It's just that saturated fat correlates higher with heart disease. So that's one thing that's missing from these charts. Now, these guys go on to say the rise in obesity is strongly associated with the rise in vegetable oil and linoleic acid consumption, arguably more so than any other dietary change, notably because there's evidence that total calories, carbohydrates, sugar, blah, 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 have stayed relatively steady, and in some cases have decreased. Well, if we go to their own chart here, we look at the left-hand side, 1960, and we add these numbers up. So let's just take nice round numbers here. So 400 plus 300 would be 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1,100 calories coming from fat per day, right? We go to the right-hand side of the chart, which is 2020. Let's just say this is 700 plus 400. That's already 1,100. And then we add these three, we get 1,400. So their own chart shows a 300 calorie increase per day just from fat.
Yep.
So I'm not sure how you can put a chart together like this and say, oh, well, it's more related to the seed oils than the calories.
Well, that's the age-old thing. I'm going to manufacture a chart, or I'm going to give you statistics that say our viewpoint or our statement is true, and this is how we know it's true.
Yeah. Well, and then looking at trends in energy intake among adults in the United States from the NHANES. So adjusted mean energy intake increased from 1,955 calories during 1971 to 1975 to 2,270 calories during 2003, 2004, and declined to right around 2,200 calories 2009 to 2010. So even the NHANES data here, we have about a 250 calorie increase from 1970 to 2000. or sorry, 2010. So that's pretty much in line with their chart. Our world and data, daily supplies of calories per person go down here. 1980, we're looking at 3,278 calories. That's an enormous amount of calories per day, folks. I don't. Anyway, 2021, 3,901. So let's say 33 to 3,900. That's a 600 calorie increase per day from 1980 to 2021. Would 600 calorie increase per day result in obesity? You bet your butt it would.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You bet.
Absolutely.
Now, maybe you can say, oh, well, if it was 250 to 300 calories, that might not result in obesity. Maybe not. But if you combine that, that's not the one I want. If you combine that with the decrease in physical activity,
I was about to say that.
our calorie surplus actually increases. Even more so. 2022, 31% of adults worldwide were physically inactive. That's an increase of 5% from 2010. Now, we're talking about, would switching to beef tallow result in some meaningful effect in obesity, or that the switch from beef tallow to seed oils resulted in obesity? We have a problem here because the obesity rate has actually dropped quite recently. Since 2020, the obesity rate dropped about 2%. So it was about 42%. It's now sitting at 40%. And this drop in obesity also for children, it went from 16 to about 14 and a half. So we have about a 2% drop in obesity. This is despite McDonald's French fries being cooked in seed oils. Now, the argument that we get from this beef tallow versus seed oil French fry thing, it would not be expected that we would see a drop in obesity. If seed oils are causing the obesity, there should not be a drop in obesity. People are not consuming less, right?
Right. Consuming more.
They're consuming more. And we have a nice little graph here so we can see right around 2020, it peaked, obesity peaked, and it has been on a decline for the last 3-4 years. So, all of that to say, would changing the fat that McDonald's French fries is cooked in result in some meaningful effect on obesity? I don't think so. No, I don't see any plausible reason as to why that would be expected. None at
Well,
all.
and there's so many other factors in in the formula. I mean, so are we looking just at French fries? As people just eating, that's all they eat is French fries? No. I mean, so there's a lot more to the formula than that. So the obesity, the rise in obesity is not just from people eating French fries.
Yeah, it's multifactorial.
Absolutely.
And I just chose this because it gets posted quite a bit on social media. This thing about McDonald's French fries used to be cooked in beef tallow, and the only evidence I've ever seen anyone provide is that people used to be thinner, or obesity rates were less back then. And it kind of like, it's like, well, I'm not really sure how the fat that McDonald's French fries is cooked in independently would
Right.
have some effect,
Right.
massive effect on obesity. I mean, to go from, if we were to take Zero Acre, their chart, what was it, in 1977-ish, the obesity rate was, it's looking like 11, 12%, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
To go from 11, 12% to 35 to 40%, an independent causal factor for that being the fat the McDonald's French fries cooked in, like, I don't even see that as being a plausible explanation for that.
No, not at
Not
all.
at all.
If we had a chart that tracked say 20 factors, French fries is not going to be in the top 20. It's just not.
There's so many things that correlate with the rise in obesity. One of them is the number of cars owned per household.
Yes. Yes. The number of hours on video gaming, the decrease in number of hours of people being outside as a normal part of their day.
Access
You
to
know,
information on the internet.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Like
All of that is,
there's yeah, there's so many things that we can say correlate with these numbers. And so something else I saw it this morning. So I've talked previously about the rates of obesity directly correlate with infant and child mortality.
ah,
And I saw some a trend chart this morning for um, fertility rates and our population. So how many babies we're having on average. And so that number peaked, oh gosh, I can't remember when it was, maybe 2011 or 2012 something. And so it's been on a decline. And so we see this decline in obesity rates happening around 2020. So, I've made the thing before. We have more people who are surviving infancy and childhood due to increased medical technologies and our ability to deal with illnesses and keep babies alive and stuff. We also have older people who are able to live longer now because we're able to keep them alive. So we see this trend in the number of babies we're having starts to drop off. So our reproduction, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's fertility rates. So that dropped off around 2012 or sometime there. So would that result in a lower population growth? So we're having less babies.
yep,
So would that be, would we see that result in a decade later in obesity trends?
probably.
Maybe.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
A lot of people are attributing the obesity thing to GLP-1s, which I think is quite plausible.
Yeah.
Quite plausible. However, we do have this issue of less babies are being born, so there are less babies to become obese. There are less children. We saw that there's a decline
Hmm.
in childhood obesity.
Right. Yep.
We have that there. All right, man. Well,
Yeah.
what do you
And
what do
that,
you say? If we
yeah,
change to
this,
beef tallow, is that going to have any effect?
no,
Yeah.
no, not at all. If anything, it'll have a plus effect with a higher rate of obesity. But it would be so difficult to track, you know.
The only way that I think that it would have an effect is that it would make French fries so expensive, people would stop buying them and
Yep.
would decrease their calorie intake.
Yep. Yep.
That, but
I'll have a Big Mac, just
yeah,
a sandwich,
but
not the
yeah,
meal.
all things being equal, if it was just a one-to-one swap, let's even say that the calories were the same, one-to-one swap, like would it result in anything significant? Not really, no. Even though we
Oh,
saw from the animal models, like beef tallow generally tends to result in increase in body weight. It's not
mhm.
that much. Like clinically,
Right,
it just
right,
isn't that much. We're talking like a
right,
1 or 2 pounds. It's
right,
just not enough to be concerned with.
right, right. There are those out there that would take the opposite side on this discussion that yeah, beef tallow would be better, or the goal is people trying to make a better diet for
Hmm.
children. Okay, that would have to be a comprehensive thing, and French fries is the least. I think the least
Yeah,
of these. So having a comprehensive change in children's diets to produce a more healthy uh, diet as well as a more healthy child. Yeah, there's a lot of things that need to be attacked before French fries.
right. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
You probably need to decrease the frequency of visits to McDonald's.
yes, yeah,
Try that first.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. However, with that thought, and this maybe for another podcast, with that thought, for some families, it's cheaper to go get a Happy Meal than it is
Absolutely.
to go buy bananas, oranges, apples, and fruits for their children to eat as a snack.
Mm,
Just saying.
yeah. Yep. In some cases, I think it is cheaper. I've looked into this before too. That would be a good podcast to have. You also have the aspect of food deserts. And
Mm,
I've said this before. I lived in a food desert in Houston
yeah,
when I was an
yeah,
upcoming single man.
yep,
And yeah, man, like my diet was mostly microwave burritos, peanut butter jelly sandwiches, and ramen noodles and whatever you got from the gas station. Like
yep,
there wasn't a store within, 30-minute drive
yep.
that provided me the opportunity to buy fresh fruits, vegetables,
Right,
chicken, beef, and all that stuff.
right, right, right.
It just wasn't there. It wasn't. Could
Yeah,
I have driven farther? Yeah, I could have driven farther. But a lot of you talk about lower income families who may or may not have a car.
yeah,
I worked with a guy and he had, gosh, like 6 kids at home, and he drove an hour and a half to get to work. He lived on the south side of Houston, drove all the way up to Spring to get to work. They had one car, so his wife stayed at home, took care of the kids. All the kids were at home. Like they didn't have transportation to drive 45 minutes
right,
to go to a grocery store
right,
where they could buy that stuff.
right,
They walked down to the Family Dollar or the gas
right.
station to get food. You know what I mean? That's what they did.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah,
or
yeah.
McDonald's or Burger King or Whataburger or whatever was within walking distance for them.
Right.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All
All right, man. Good stuff.
deal. So, hope something was mind-blowing for somebody. There has always been seed oils in McDonald's French fries. And we'll see you guys next time. All right, Coach Lemby and Dwayne out.